From breaking news in South Korea to stories from around the world, we're here to bring you the news that matters.
Truth, clarity, and impartiality. And that's what we uphold in a fast-changing world.
We go beyond the headlines, offering depth, context, and perspective.
This isn't just news, it's our commitment. News you trust. Arirang News.
Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. The U.S. military has launched what it described as self-defense strikes in southern Iran, with the U.S. Central Command saying targets included missile launch sites and Iranian boats attempting to lay mines. This comes after President Donald Trump said a deal to end the war was proceeding nicely, while warning that if diplomacy fails, U.S. attacks would resume on a scale bigger and stronger than ever before. Iran says progress has been made in talks with the United States, but stressed that this does not mean a deal was imminent. A senior Iranian official criticized shifting positions by U.S. officials, saying they have complicated efforts to reach an agreement. Here in South Korea, heavy rain is expected across most parts of the country. Authorities are urging the public to take safety precautions, warning the downpours could be accompanied by strong winds, thunder, and lightning. U.S. President Donald Trump says negotiations with Iran are nearing a deal, but ongoing disputes over Tehran's nuclear program and sanctions relief continue to slow progress. Our Cho Young-eun starts us off.
U.S. Central Command said Monday that U.S. forces carried out self-defense strikes in southern Iran, targeting missile launch sites and Iranian boats allegedly attempting to lay mines during the ongoing ceasefire. Explosions were reported in the port city of Bandar Abbas, with Iranian media saying the situation is under control. Earlier Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump said negotiations with Iran toward a deal to end the war were proceeding nicely, but warned that if diplomacy fails, U.S. attacks would resume on a scale bigger and stronger than ever before. Writing on Truth Social, Trump said the deal with Iran would either be a great and meaningful one or there will be no deal. His remarks come amid criticism from both Democrats and some Republicans who worry a deal could ease pressure on Tehran while leaving Iran's nuclear program intact. On the same day, Trump insisted that Iran's enriched uranium stockpile must either be handed over to the United States or destroyed under the oversight of the International Atomic Energy Agency. A senior U.S. official said Iran had agreed in principle to dispose of the highly enriched uranium, with details of the mechanism still being discussed. Trump also called for countries including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Egypt, Jordan, and Turkey to join the Abraham Accords as part of broader efforts tied to negotiations with Iran. He said he spoke with leaders from those countries, including the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, which already signed the normalization agreements with Israel. Trump said on social media that those nations will welcome Iran into the accords once a deal to end the conflict is reached. The comments follow an Axios report from Saturday, which said that Washington and Tehran are discussing a framework agreement that could include extending a ceasefire for 60 days, reopening the Strait of Hormuz, and continuing talks over Iran's nuclear program. 조영은, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Iran says progress has been made in talks with the United States to end the 3-month conflict in the Persian Gulf, but pushed back on any notion that an agreement is imminent, with a senior official saying the U.S. has complicated negotiations. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran says progress has been made in talks with the United States aimed at ending the 3-month conflict in the Persian Gulf, but cautioned that a final agreement is not yet close. Speaking at a weekly briefing on Monday, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghaei said negotiators had reached conclusions on many issues, but stressed that this did not mean a deal was imminent.
It is true that we have reached a conclusion regarding a large part of the topics under discussion, but to say that this means the signing of an agreement is imminent, no one can make such a claim.
He added that current discussions are focused primarily on ending the war and lifting the U.S. naval blockade around the Strait of Hormuz, rather than on Iran's nuclear program. According to Baghaei, a proposed 14-point memorandum of understanding would center on restoring safe passage through the strategic waterway in exchange for Iranian guarantees on maritime security. However, he also criticized the shifting positions by U.S. officials, saying they have complicated efforts to reach an agreement. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington would continue to give diplomacy every opportunity before considering what he called alternatives. His comments followed President Donald Trump's announcement that he had instructed American negotiators not to rush into a deal with Tehran. Despite some progress in peace talks, the two sides remain divided over several key issues, including Iran's nuclear ambitions, Tehran's demands for sanctions relief, and access to billions of dollars in frozen oil revenues overseas, as well as the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah group in Lebanon. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And now for a closer look at how the situation in the Middle East could unfold from here. We're joined today by Dr. Mohammad Gura, Professor of Middle East Economics at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Gura, thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So President Trump says he won't do a bad deal, and he has reportedly instructed his team not to rush into any agreement. Does that strengthen or weaken the U.S. negotiating position? How might peace talks unfold from here?
I think finally we're getting somewhere. I mean, for long weeks, we have been waiting to reach some sort of breakthrough. Now we are seeing a breakthrough happening between Iran and U.S. And we're seeing also nowadays, or actually last night, the Iranian negotiators have reached Doha to continue talks with the Doha officials in order to reach some sort of an agreement. So we are getting somewhere. Also, the earlier remarks by Marco Rubio is, I would think, somehow very promising that we are going to reach some sort of a deal sooner or later. However, this deal will not be the be-all or end-all as what President Trump is trying to promise. I think it will have many phases. It will have, longer periods to discuss. I think the uranium will be a key issue, but I think this will happen later in another phase. But for now, I think this is good news for all of us. We are hoping that we can end this situation soon. Economically speaking, the IMF and World Bank are saying that by the end of June is a red line for the economy, global economy, to be, negatively affected by the Hormuz Strait closure. So I think, and I hope we reach an agreement before the end of June. This will make, I think, everybody happy.
Right, you just mentioned that uranium would be a key issue, and U.S. officials have reportedly said a potential deal would actually include Iran's commitment to give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. So would giving up that uranium cross a red line for Tehran?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a great question. We have to remember before we discuss uranium that Iran is choking itself. Iran is in a very desperate situation, economically speaking, because Hormuz Strait closure is also affecting Iran tremendously. So Iran is in a very hard situation. They're trying their best to keep their face value for their public and to show that they are still have lots of support and lots of, power to proceed. But I think it's a very hard position, to be honest. So the enriched uranium is a big deal for Iran. This is a strategic aspect for Iran. This is not only a tactic or something. No, this is what Iran is bargaining for a long time about, having a nuclear program and so on. So I think this is a very important bargaining chip in the hand of Iran. It will try to play it strategically, but I think it will be very hard also to do this right now because Iran is in a very hard situation. The main problem between Iran and US, I think, will be trust regarding how the uranium will be dealt with. From what we see, that the uranium is not now on the table of discussion. It will come in a later phase. However, even President Trump's supporters, like Lindsey Graham, for instance, earlier said that if U.S. is making a deal with Iran without the enriched uranium, then why did we go to war? So I think this leads to many questions for U.S. And I think President Trump knows this, and he will try his best to bring the uranium deal into the discussion in the first place. But I think this will not happen in the way that he thinks, because Iran, it's the last straw in the hand of Iran. So it will be very, very hard to reach an agreement on this.
I see. And as for Israel, its military says it has begun a wave of strikes across Lebanon. And this comes after the Prime Minister Netanyahu said his country will intensify its attacks on Hezbollah. So how do you think the conflict between Israel and Lebanon will play out from here?
Again, this is a great question. All the discussions that has been going on is not mentioning Israel by any chance when we are talking about negotiations, right? I mean, between US and Iran. Nobody's talking about Israel anymore. So I think Israel feels somehow betrayed by President Trump, and this is what you get when you are watching and reading what Prime Minister Netanyahu is mentioning regarding U.S. He feels that U.S. is taking more steps than what Israel wants to do right now. Israel wants to reshape the Middle East. This is what he has said many times in the last few years. And if Iran continues to be a threat to Israel, then his plan is failing. So Israel will try to intensify its strikes to Lebanon, because this is the only front that's allowed to do this right now. It will try to demolish Hezbollah's power as much as possible, but this will lead to more threats to U.S.-Iran agreement, because Iran is thinking about the unity of fronts ideology, that Hezbollah is one part of Iran, so it will not allow Hezbollah to be struck so much by Israel as what Israel was hoping for. So I think we're going to witness more confrontations in Lebanon, unfortunately, especially for Lebanese civilians who are really torn apart and who are really suffering because of those strikes. Lebanon is a very weak. Lebanon government is in a very weak position, but I think this confrontation will be prolonged. Unfortunately, we will witness more suffering in Lebanon, but hopefully we can try to reach some sort of peace, hopefully soon in the future.
Right. And Professor Gouda, before I let you go, what would a successful agreement mean for stability and the economy in the Middle East? And what are the risks if the current negotiations collapse?
I'm happy you mentioned the word economy. I think economy is one big deal that we are all hoping for. Everybody is affected by this. Even here, we are in Korea, and people affected by this in India. India has risen the price of oil for 4 times in the last few weeks. So everybody is feeling the pressure, economic pressure, and of course the political pressure, but mainly economic pressure. Global economy is suffering. A successful agreement will definitely end U.S.-Iran confrontation. At least we will enter a state of non-peaceful truce. We will have some sort of like a preliminary agreement, but it will not be a peaceful agreement, but some sort of a preliminary agreement to stop the war. Maritime security in the Gulf is essential. risk to the Strait of Hormuz will be decreased essentially. Although many questions regarding the mines are still up in the air. We will see how we were going to deal with this later. Pressure on regional proxy conflicts will need to be dealt with. Economically, we will need a stable region, stable Gulf economy, lower energy volatility, and lowering ship risks. I think if we can reach the agreement, if some sort of agreement can be reached to those points, I think this will be very sufficient for now. And we will leave the negotiations for later, dealing with enriched uranium, dealing with war, dealing with the stability of the Iranian regime. This is all, of course, very essential, but it all comes later. But for now, for us, right now, for all of us, I think the economic stability is number one thing that we're all thinking about. And hopefully, we will not cross the red line that will be happening by the end of June. I hope so.
Right. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Gura, thank you so much for your time and insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
South Korea's foreign ministry says it has urged Israel to carry out a full investigation into allegations that 2 Korean activists were assaulted by Israeli forces after being detained aboard 8 vessels headed for the Gaza Strip. The ministry said Monday that it summoned Israel's deputy ambassador to Seoul on Saturday to formally express concern over the claims. The 2 activists, Kim Ha-hyun and Kim Dong-hyun, returned home Friday after being released. Upon arrival, they alleged they were physically assaulted while in Israeli custody. Kim says she suffered partial hearing loss in her left ear after being struck repeatedly on that side of her face. Seoul stressed that appropriate action must be taken if the allegations of inhumane treatment are confirmed. And Korea's benchmark KOSPI opened at a new record high this morning, surpassing the 8,000 mark on opening. The index opened at 8,070.91, driven by growing expectations over an end to the war between the United States and Iran. Korean semiconductor giants also led the surge. Samsung Electronics crossed the 300,000 won threshold, while SK Hynix topped 2 million won for the first time during intraday trading. Heavy rain and strong winds are expected across most parts of the country today. Rain began on Jeju Island and the Jeollado regions. It's forecast to spread nationwide during the day and continue into Wednesday. According to the Korean Meteorological Administration, Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province are expected to get between 10 and 60 millimeters of rain, while Jeju Island and southern coastal regions could see as much as 150 millimeters. Authorities also warned of strong winds, thunder, and lightning, and they urged the public to take safety precautions. Experts say better recycling starts at home. Much of the plastic placed in recycling bins never actually makes it back into new products. But simple steps like removing labels and rinsing off food waste can make a significant difference. Our Kim So-young reports.
This resource recovery center on Jeju-do Island processes 70 tons of recyclable waste every day. The equipment can separate what can be recycled from contaminated waste. But in the end, what matters most is how clean the plastic is. The few seconds it takes to remove a label and rinse off food waste can make all the difference.
When households separate their trash properly, the waste that comes in here is easier to sort and more can be recycled.
However, what is actually thrown away tells a different story. Plastic tossed into standard garbage bags averages 25 grams per person each day, more than twice the amount put out for recycling. The problem is that even the plastic thrown into those bags could be turned into high-quality recycled material if it were not contaminated. But once it is mixed with other waste, only 8% of it is recycled. Even plastic that people take the time to separate often never makes it back into new products. There are still too many barriers on the road to real recycling. Korea's official recycling rate stands at 56%. But by European standard, which only counts plastic turned back into new material, the real rate drops to just 16%. That means much of the plastic set aside for recycling is still being burned.
Recycling does not improve simply because people sort their waste more carefully. The system has to support those efforts.
Real change will require companies to design products with recycling in mind from the start, and stronger government rules to make that happen. Only then can the burden of recycling be shared instead of falling mainly on customers. Small efforts at home can build a stronger recycling system. Kim Seoyoung, Arirang News.
Agro-healing programs are gaining attention here in South Korea, using agricultural resources to help relieve stress and support emotional recovery. The Korean government has even begun introducing a national certification system for those types of facilities. Our Tae Yoon-kyung reports.
This is a horse riding center in Miryang, Gyeongsangnam-do Province. Students communicate with the horses by carefully petting and feeding them. Like professional jockeys, they take turns riding the horses around the track. After the horseback riding session, a fun pizza making and tasting experience awaits. This is an agro-healing program that goes beyond the simple activity, focusing on emotional recovery and stress relief.
I was exhausted from constant studying, but riding a horse makes me feel like all that stress is finally being released.
By spending an hour talking to, feeding, touching, and leading the horses, the students develop a very close bond with them.
At an agro-healing farm in Gimje, Jeollabuk-do Province, flowers and vegetable gardens serve as tools for therapy. Repetitive activities, such as planting seeds, touching flowers, and nurturing plants, lead to increased confidence and emotional stability.
Through consistent gardening activities, participants gain confidence and a sense of self-efficacy, feeling that I can really achieve something on their own.
The Rural Development Administration has certified 91 qualified farms as excellent agro-healing facilities for the first time this year. These sites pass rigorous national standards regarding infrastructure, equipment, and professional staffing. The certification is valid for 3 years.
We are implementing this certification system to ensure that users are provided with high-quality, premium services.
Agro-healing is emerging as a trusted space for recovery, evolving beyond the simple rural experiences into a place where anyone can find peace of mind. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Choo Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The head of the World Health Organization said that the Ebola outbreak in Congo and Uganda is moving faster than response efforts can handle, with 220 suspected deaths now recorded. WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus said on Monday that responders are, quote, playing catch-up after a weeks-long detection delay, and warned the outbreak is likely to get worse before it gets better. He said he would travel to the epicenter of the virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday. Meanwhile, in Congo's Ituri province, a hospital came under attack twice over the weekend as relatives of victims demanded bodies for burial and protesters burned treatment tents. 25 patients fled during the attacks, and one critically ill patient died while trying to escape. Health officials warn that fleeing patients make contact tracing nearly impossible. In Japan, 26 people at a Tokyo mall developed throat pain and felt unwell after a person allegedly sprayed an unknown substance. Dozens of emergency vehicles and responders in hazmat suits were deployed to the Ginza 6 shopping complex on Monday, and the surrounding roads were temporarily closed. All but one of the victims were taken to the hospital with symptoms described as mild. Police found traces of what appeared to be pepper spray on a nearby wall. The The suspect has not been identified, and an investigation is underway. In Angola, a landslide at an illegal gold mine has killed at least 28 people. Local authorities said the landslide on Saturday at the mine in Bengo province was one of Angola's deadliest mining disasters. All victims were aged between 16 and 35 years old. 4 people were rescued. Illegal gold mining has surged in Angola as falling diamond prices have pushed workers toward gold and other metals. Britain recorded its hottest ever day in May on Monday. Temperatures at Kew Gardens in London reached 34.8 degrees Celsius. The United Kingdom's National Weather and Climate Service said the reading broke the previous May record of 32.8 degrees set in both 1922 and 1944. It was also the hottest public holiday on record since Met Office records began in 1884. Ahead of the heat wave, the UK government issued an amber heat alert for large parts of England. Weather forecasters say Tuesday could see temperatures as high as 35 degrees.
After bright and sunny skies over the holiday weekend, today is looking completely different. Clouds have already filled the sky and rain is falling across Jeju-do Island and parts of the south coast. A heavy rain warning is in place for the mountainous parts of Jeju Island, and this band of rain clouds will gradually spread across the Korea through the afternoon. The mountainous regions on Jeju could receive up to 250 millimeters of downpours. South coast might get up to 150 millimeters. Most of central regions, including here in the capital, might see 10 to 60 millimeters. The heaviest rain is expected through tomorrow morning. Then afternoon highs will be 3 to 4 degrees lower than yesterday, getting up to 27 degrees here in Seoul and Daejeon. Gwangju topping out at 26 degrees. And winds will also pick up as the day goes on. More rain is expected through Thursday, and sunnier and warmer weather is expected to return later this week.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.
저희 누나가 발레를 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 누나 발레 학원에 따라가서 누나가 하는 모습을 보니까 저도 하고 싶다고 생각이 조금 들어서 발레 음악에 맞춰서 아무 춤이나 추다 보니까 그냥 그 음악에 맞춰서 제가 몸을 움직이는 게 재밌다고 느껴졌었는지 발레를 계속 하고 있더라고요. 나이가 좀 어릴 때 제가 가진 장점이 무엇인지도 모르고 아예 제가 가진 단점도 모를 때 발레를 시작했다 보니까 제일 큰 문제가 이제 평발이었던 것 같아요. 평발이다 보니까 발레를 할 때 쥐가 조금 많이 나는 편이라 그거를 견뎌가면서 춤을 계속 춰야 했던 거 그게 가장 극복하기 힘들었던 것 같고요. 제가 다리가 다른 친구들보다 조금 두껍다고 해서 제 다리를 조금 싫어했었는데 근데 이제 로잔에 갔다 오고 나서 오히려 제 다리에서 나오는 파워풀한 힘이 좋았다고 해주시는 분들도 있다는 걸 느껴가지고 그 두 개가 가장 극복하기도 힘들었고 기억에 남는 것 같아요. 프릭스티 로잔이라는 콩쿨 자체가 학생들 사이에서는 가장 크고 의미 있는 콩쿨이다 보니 제가 그 로잔 영상을 보면서 자라왔기 때문에 그 무대에 서서 제가 춤을 췄다는 것 자체가 엄청 인상 깊었던 것 같아요. 제가 걸어왔던 길, 이게 맞는 방법일까? 근데 그런 의구심을 다 없앨 수 있게 제가 가는 길이 맞았다라는 거를 확인시켜줬던 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 감정이 들어서 조금 감격스러웠던 것 같아요. 한 배역에만 잘 할 수 있는 명수가 아니라 어떠한 배역을 받아도 다 넣어서 소화해낼 수 있는 그런 스펙트럼이 넓은 명수가 되고 싶습니다.
Held its first debate over the weekend.
The economy is expected to expand 2.5% this year.
Boosting Korea's ties with its global partners on the sidelines of the Status UN summit. A massive drone attack on Ukraine overnight on Monday and Tuesday.
Arirang.
We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Tuesday, May 26th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. And joining us today is Kyun.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in, the Moon is with us.
Good morning.
To have you, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're kicking off the work week with the perfect debate for workers looking for a little bit of Tuesday motivation, a classic would you rather game, and today it's going to be all about money. So, would you rather take a guaranteed 100 million Korean won, around $70,000 US in cash, or risk it all for a 50% chance at winning 1 billion won, which is roughly $700,000, but there's a catch. If luck isn't on your side, you end up walking away with absolutely nothing. So Kyun, do you want to go first?
Wow, that's a tough one, but free money sounds really good, as always. But one thing for sure is that I'm not really good at gambling and not the type to really take my chances and trust my luck. So my straight answer would be to take the guaranteed 100 million won. I mean, it's still a big money, right? But as much as, the 1 billion won looks very tempting, I think something from nothing sounds more appealing than all or nothing. But I'm thinking of suddenly just having like $70,000 in my pocket. Wow, I would definitely invest half of it and use the rest on probably traveling, because I haven't traveled in a while and I really want to travel. But I think, money's always good, but if you think of it as like gambling, like all or nothing or double down, it gets really like a little too much for me. Like I get too nervous and it becomes really stressful as well. So I like to take the safe option.
No, I can relate to that because I think people who take the other option means they're okay with not getting that money.
I'm not okay with that.
I'm not okay. Manju, what about you?
All right, so it's safety versus gamble, right? Anyways, just makes me smile. But I would choose the 50% chance actually, because whether it's 1 billion or 100 million, it wasn't just my money at first to begin with. So I think if it's the money you never had, I don't think I'm losing anything even though I walk away with my empty hands. So I think I could take it easy with work if I get a 1 billion won, or not, I could just work a little harder. So I think I would go gamble some and with the 50 chance. Yeah.
I think that's one way to look at it as well. So we're going to talk more about this, but first let's take a look at the screen. South Korea's stock market has been hitting record highs, drawing in a growing wave of investors eager to cash in on the rally. For many young people, investing is no longer just a side hobby. It's seen as one of the few chances to build wealth quickly, with some even taking out loans to buy stocks. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at why so many young investors are diving into the market, the risks behind Korea's investment frenzy, and how to invest more wisely in an era of hype and volatility. Just as we saw in the video, that balance game was really a test of how much risk people are willing to take, and investing styles aren't all that different. Some people prefer safe and steady returns, while others are willing to gamble big for the chance at that massive payoff. So how intense also has Korea's stock investment boom become recently, Kyun?
It is quite intense. It's very hot right now, and a lot of people are talking about the KOSPI. It's been making the headlines in the global equity market from this year up until even today, breaking historical records almost on a daily basis. Now, the KOSPI momentarily surpassed the unprecedented 8,000 mark during intraday trading a few weeks ago. And even today actually broke the 8,100 mark, I think, for the first time ever, further highlighting the intensified bullish market. Now, this investment frenzy has actually led to a surge in debt finance investing, known locally as B2 or leverage investing. Outstanding unsecured loans at South Korea's 5 major commercial banks increased by more than 1.8 trillion won in May alone. Meanwhile, if you look at the screen, the total outstanding balance from P2P lending, meaning borrowing or lending money directly among individuals, bypassing traditional institutions like banks, grew 7.5 times compared to a year earlier. So in the midst of the KOSPI boom, more people are actually borrowing money to invest with the hope of making, I guess, probably more than their salary, which means high risk at the same time.
Right. I also actually read an article yesterday about how the KOSPI, the daily average transactions surpassed 90 trillion Korean won. 90 trillion which Korean is an insane number. So more people are even just, that's why they're borrowing money just to invest. And as investing fever continues to spread, it's also creating some unexpected trends due to anxiety and uncertainty. So What are then some unusual trends are emerging from this investment boom?
Yeah, one of them is like with the investment craze continuing, particularly among the younger generations, we are seeing a trend called shamanism investing, which is very surprising. People are increasingly visiting fortune tellers and tarot cafes or seeking out destinations known for good financial fortune, such as Gwanaksan or Inwangsan. Given the high level of uncertainty in the market, these practices are essentially being utilized as a tool to relieve psychological anxiety. In fact, the fortune-telling industry has recently seen the emergence of counselors who specialize exclusively in stock market. So furthermore, services that analyze the compatibility between specific industry sectors and an individual's personal fortune and currently seeing a massive boom. Indeed, the market size has been expanding recently as a proof that shamanism investing is highly trending among investors. Yet, experts are sharing concerns that such a type of investment might instigate dumping strategies, so you really have to be careful with this.
Right, so that really shows how emotionally intense investing has become for a lot of young people. And beyond the numbers, many say this stock craze is now showing up everywhere in daily life and also in pop culture. So how is the fervor around stock investment showing up these days, Kim?
I think it's everywhere in Korea. Right. It's definitely the talk of the town. I hear it from workplaces to coffee shops, even among my friends. When we have a conversation, we talk about the stock market at least once and talk about the prices of Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix as they're the two main kind of stocks in the AI industry, and that's what's driving the KOSPI up in a bullish market right now. It's on the news almost every day, even in Arirang, popping up in social media. So it's really hard not to miss and not to talk about, especially when you see feeds of people showing off how much they actually made. Even your friend of a friend, and then you suddenly feel like, oh, you become very jealous. You're like, oh, maybe I should jump on the bandwagon as well. And you see a lot of people who started just investing now because everyone else is talking about how much money they're making. So they're like, oh, I don't want to miss out. And they start investing without having much knowledge. And they could be the ones not making money and thinking, oh, how come I'm not the only one who's making money? But then with investing, you need a lot of practice, patience, and of course, study as well. You need to have a lot of knowledge and it takes time. So just because everyone else seems to be making money, it doesn't mean you can make money as well. So you need to be really careful with how you invest, where you invest, and it's all about timing as well.
Right, because there's so many success, you only hear success stories, so it's easy to kind of forget that. So what about you? How else is it showing up?
Yeah, I think, if you really want to know what the public is most focused on these days, I think one of the best way to look at is watching TV broadcasting programs. By nature, a medium designed to capture the attention of the masses that is broadcasting. So it has to stay highly tuned into the trends of the times. In that sense, it's no surprise that we are seeing a surge of parody videos depicting the stock market frenzy on shows like SNL and various web variety programs. The fact that this topic is dominating shows with predominantly all age-round audiences shows proves just how deeply our stock market is impacting everyone today, I think, regardless of age or even gender.
So it almost feels like stock talks have become a daily routine now, and that raises a bigger question about why so many, especially young people, feel so drawn to investing in the first place. So why are so many young people obsessed with investing?
Well, according to experts, they say the boom in debt-fueled investing is being driven by a growing sense among young people that this may be their last real opportunity to build wealth. Now, in the past, even those struggling, our parents' generation mostly, those struggling financially still believed the economy would continue to grow, which it has, and stable jobs provide a foundation for economic independence. But unfortunately, in today's situation, younger generation faces a very different reality. Home ownership, once considered the cornerstone of personal wealth, has become increasingly out of reach. Wealth inequality has widened, and with high inflation and high cost of living, many actually feel that relying on wages alone is no longer enough to build meaningful assets. Therefore, they start investing, but then with high risk. They think, oh, high risk means high return, but at the same time means high losses as well. So I think many people need to be careful when they invest. And we're going to hear from an expert very soon about how to invest better. Yeah.
Right. So for many young people, investing no longer feels optional, and on top of that pressure is also a growing fear of being left behind while others make money. So what are some other factors that are fueling this frenzy among young people?
Yeah, right. The FOMO, which is fear of missing out. This is the anxiety of being the only one left behind in such, highly profitable stock market these days we are experiencing right now. In fact, during the real estate boom while ago, the term sudden beggar kind of emerged. It describes the phenomenon of becoming relatively impoverished overnight, doing absolutely nothing while the assets of others have skyrocketed. Furthermore, as consecutive real estate regulations have made it increasingly difficult for the younger generation to scrape together every single pennies they have to buy a home, and many have pivoted to stocks and cryptocurrency. However, because young professionals often lack substantial seed money, this shift has inevitably led to debt-financed investing. There is also a growing trend toward a short-term day trading, fueled by the desire to make a short-term small profit while the market is very hot.
So that fear of missing out can be incredibly powerful, especially during a bull market. And whether they invest or not, many people say it's hard not to be affected by all the stories that you're hearing surrounding stocks. So have you personally felt influenced by this investment boom or these stories that you're hearing?
Of course, definitely. I actually had two close friends of mine. One had invested from years back, steadily buying on one single stock while the price was extremely low actually compared to today. That stock actually became a 10-bagger, which means that the return became 1,000%, or the amount of the initial price actually increased by 10 times.
Was it one of the two tech
Yes.
Okay,
My other friend chose leverage investing, which is obviously very risky, but he actually did end up making some sort of profit. Now, looking at these two friends, I was thinking, what about me? Where do I stand? Nowhere. I was like kind of stuck in the middle, seeing both friends make money. I was like, oh, peapa. We say that in Korean, like when you see other people do so well and make a lot of money, you're like, oh, I'm so jealous. So I thought, what should I do? It's too late to start investing and look 10 years later. Am I gonna take a loan? No, I'm too, I'm too scared to actually like take out a loan. I'm not a real gambler as well. So I thought maybe I should just do more study and pick out a very, very profitable company and invest long-term so I can make profit in the long run. So I kind of changed my mindset looking at these two friends.
No, I didn't know so many people had been investing until recently, where it seems like everyone around me has made profits.
Do you know why? Because when they lose money, they don't talk about it. They only start talking about bragging it when once actually they start making money.
That's what I need to tell myself, because right now I can't even afford a watch. I'm trying to get a smart watch. And I'm like, I probably need that
mom, are you listening?
I was like, I should have invested in that.
Oh, okay.
So what about you?
Yeah, at the very beginning of the show, I kind of explained why I would gamble with the money, but I don't gamble with my own money. So I kind of like...
someone else's money?
Yeah, it's someone else's money. Or if it's a free money, I would gamble, but with my money, I would never do it. So that's why I don't invest these days. But there are very many instances I really get tempted to like do some investing in the stocks. If I felt confident that the current market trends were stable, and I might seriously consider it, but I don't think I am kind of very confident I would make some profits, and it's too expensive for those stocks. I could make possible profits, so I think that's why I don't currently invest in stocks.
Right, so this shows how investing today is a lot more also psychological as much as it's financial. And with so many people jumping into the market, the key question now is how to invest without getting swept up in the hype. So to get a more in-depth perspective on this, we're going to talk to an expert, and that conversation is going to take place right after a break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Professor Pang Mingjung from the Department of Business and Administration at Kumu National Institute of Technology. So hello, Professor. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Morning. Thank you for having me today.
So, Professor, how does today's debt-driven investment trend that we're seeing among young Koreans compare to the investment trends from the past?
Yeah, in the past, young people in Korea tended to prioritize stable employment, savings, and long-term asset accumulation. However, today's younger generation faces a very different economic environment characterized by soaring house prices, high living costs, and stagnant wages. This is relative to asset inflation and intense social comparison amplified through social media. As a result, many young people feel that traditional pathways to wealth accumulation are no longer realistic. This has led to these days a stronger tendency toward leveraged investing, where individuals use loans or debt to invest in assets such as stocks, cryptocurrencies, or real estate. Compared to previous generations, these days investment decisions today are faster and more technology-driven and heavily influenced by online communities and digital platforms. So in these many cases, investment is no longer viewed simply as wealth management, but as a perceived necessary for survival and social mobility.
Thank you, Professor. What risks does this investment frenzy pose to society and individuals?
Yeah, the risks are significant at both the individuals and social levels. For individuals, excessive debt in debt-based investing can create severe financial instability. If markets decline sharply, young investors may face heavy debt burdens, psychological stress, or reduced quality of life, and even long-term financial exclusion. In extreme cases, failed investments can affect career choices and family formation and mental health. From a social perspective, speculative investment culture can deepen inequality, weaken trust in productive economic activities. When rapid speculative gains are glorified, people may undervalue long-term skills, innovation, and sustainable career development. Moreover, widespread household debt increases systematic financial risks and can negatively affect consumption, economic stability, and social cohesion. Also, another important concern is that algorithm-driven information environments and social media can amplify herd behavior or misinformation and emotional decision-making, leading to irrational market bubbles.
Yeah, I see. So, Professor, our last question for you today is, what kind of advice would you give young people on wisely investing?
The important thing is that first, investing should be approached as a long-term process of displaying asset management rather than a short-term gamble. Young people should avoid making investment decisions based on solely on fear of missing out, we call FOMO, or social pressure. And second, financial literacy is also extremely important. Before investing, young people's individuals should understand risk diversification, cash flow management, interest rates, and the basic principles of financial markets. Borrowing money to invest can magnify gains, but it also magnifies losses. Therefore, leverage should be used very cautiously. And finally, the most important thing is that successful investing is not about chasing quick profits. It is about maintaining rational judgment, emotional control, and long-term resilience, even during uncertainty and market volatility.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your take on this, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We just spoke with a business professor about how today's debt-driven investing trend among young Koreans differs from the past, the risk this investment frenzy poses to both individuals and society, and what advice young people should keep in mind when investing. But beyond the excitement and success stories, there are also growing concerns surrounding this investment boom, like she just highlighted. So what are some major problems behind today's investing frenzy, Kyun?
You know, just what Professor said, I totally agree with her. And just to echo and just to add on what she just mentioned, you know, while debt fuel investing can generate large profits, if the market continues to rise, the risks are actually equally significant when the market goes down. Like in the downturn, losses can quickly snowball, making it far more likely for investors to suffer substantial losses.
What are some of your take on this?
Yeah, again, just as Professor mentioned, you know, intensifying investment frenzy is sharply devaluing the traditional labor. So ultimately, the widening gap between the rapid capital gains and the stagnant wages accelerates the social inequality, threatening the very foundation of a stable society. So we should be careful with this.
That's why many people are looking into how to invest more smart. So what does then, to close off today's discussion, investing wisely look like?
It's a tough question, but it's something we all need to look at as young people as well, looking toward our future. I think debt fuel investing poses ripple effects, and it may end up harming your health both physically and mentally to a point where you actually cannot go back. Now, once you switch your brain to like a gamble mode, kind of, you step away from reality and start betting on high risk, high return stocks or options, which usually ends up in big losses. Now, people have earned big money through investing, most probably through a lot of trial and error. So I think everything takes time. So take it slow, step by step, and gain a lot of knowledge first before you just jump on the bandwagon. Just because everyone else is making money, it doesn't mean you're going to make money as well. And just you need to really train yourself mentally as well when you go through, I guess, big losses.
I think that's very sound advice. What's your advice?
Pretty much similar what Kyun said. There are no shortcuts. Just you have to really study hard. Do not rely too much on the luck or the rumors. It's just you really have to study and see it as a long term.
Right. So today's investing boom really reflects not just the desire to make money, but also the pressure many young people feel about their future. While investing can create opportunities, experts say managing risk and avoiding emotional decisions are the most important than ever. And whether you're all in on stocks or still keeping your money safely in the bank, one thing is quite certain: everyone seems to be watching the market these days. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Kyun.
Always a pleasure.
And also Moonju.
Thanks for having me today.
For coming in. To our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And hopefully your stocks keep climbing so your stress levels don't. We are News Generation.